Saw X is the 10th film in the Saw franchise. I've been watching through all these movies over the course of the past week and a half, and I finally arrived at the 10th and hopefully last movie, and honestly, I'm surprised at how good this one was. Saw X takes place supposedly between the first and second film, and John Kramer goes on a mission to help cure his cancer, obviously a huge point in the franchise. And in typical Saw fashion, some things go wrong and some people end up in some traps, and we get an amazing story with John Kramer. As I said, this movie really surprised me. When the first people saw it and the first reviews came out, it was like, okay, people are enjoying this, but after going through the Saw movies and being like, yeah, almost all these are terrible, my expectations aren't too high, but I'm very happy to say I enjoyed this one. And I should make it clear that I absolutely love the original. It's one of my favorite horror films of all time. I think the original is a near masterpiece. It is phenomenal what James Wan and Leigh Whannell were able to do. And then you get to the sequels, and it just... But I will talk about those in my ranking. And then there was Spiral. I watched Spiral earlier today, which was good enough, but nothing amazing. But Saw X, in my opinion, is even better. I think the big thing with this film is that it isn't just people are put in traps and ripped apart and their limbs are flying everywhere. And you get that in this movie, but that's not the basis of this film. And that's what makes so many of these Saw movies so terrible, is that they just don't focus on characters. But this one really is a character study on Jigsaw, on John Kramer, on whatever you want to call him. Tobin Bell does such an excellent job here. Even, this is almost 20 years after the first one still. He has it. He's got the voice. He's got everything he needs. And because of his character's situation in the movie with the cancer, it does work at the fact that he looks older and more kind of broken down. And I thought he did an amazing job here. But that's why this film is better than most of them, is because it's not just about people getting ripped apart. For the most part, is a film studying kind of the mindset of him and why he is the way that he is. Some of the other films have tried to get at that, and there are moments in some of the sequels, which I don't think are all awful, but there are moments where you're like, okay, I understand that. But then you get to the later movies and you're like, yeah, these are just terrible people, and we don't really care if they die because they've done all this stuff. But this film shows the different perspectives, and I don't want to say too much because it would be very easy to spoil a lot of this movie, but what they're able to do with the direction and the writing is very good. I do wish they cut about 15 minutes from this film. There's a part in the second act in between some of the big moments where there's a bit too much meat, and for lack of a better term, they could have cut all that off. This is the longest Saw film, and you do feel it towards the end, but then when other stuff starts to kick in, you're like, okay, this is cool. But for me personally, I would have cut about 15 minutes, made it about as long as the first Saw film, and it would have been even smoother. But I was surprised at how little problems there were with this. There's some logic, there's some things when you watch the other ones going, oh, this doesn't make sense, or why did they do this, but for the most part the questions are answered. And again, typical Saw fashion, the way they do it is very good. But I have to give major praise to the director, because it's very easy to mess up the Saw style of punching in on people and the camera spinning around, make it look cheap. And technically it is cheap because the first movie was made for not a lot of money, and this film only had a budget of $13 million, but it looks amazing. Like, the color grading is amazing. The way they punch in on these characters is very well done, because it doesn't feel recycled. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is just a weaker James Wan, or even the script didn't feel like, oh, this is a weaker Leigh Whannell or anything like that. Like, the director put his own spin on it, but still there was enough for it to be recognizable as a Saw film. And there's something about this movie that I want to talk about, but I want to be careful. I always say, you should watch the movie before you watch reviews, but the way they don't show some stuff is very impressive. Yes, you are going to go into this movie, if you're going into it for the traps, you're going to have fun with some of these. They're bloody, they're gruesome, but again, this film is mainly a character study, and the way they handle some of the violence in this movie is very well done. I want to be careful on what I say because I could be giving stuff away, but it was very well done, and the sound design is utterly brilliant. It matches the editing so well to make some of these scenes even more disturbing, and it puts ideas in your head because of some of the sounds you hear, which may not be on screen, as I was kind of talking about before. I thought that was really well done. As I said, it could have been cut down a little bit, and there are some times where some characters are a little bit too, like, I don't want to say generic, but just in most of the Saw movies, there's a moment where characters just scream for help too much, and you're like, you've already been screaming for help for like 10 minutes. It sounds messed up of me to say, but like a natural reaction after like 20 minutes, they aren't going to help you. You kind of realize there's little stuff like that. Some other things that are spoilers that I can't mention. But for the most part, I was really surprised at how much I like Saw X. I recommend you go watch it. You don't have to watch all the Saw movies. I did because I'll be doing a ranking very soon. But this one was shockingly good. Saw X is finally another killer movie in the franchise. By focusing on John Kramer, we get a much more compelling and personal story, but we still have some gruesome traps. The camera work and editing is very effective, but it's the sound design that pulls everything together in a disgustingly great way. This is without a doubt one of the high points in the Saw franchise. I'm going to give Saw X a 4 out of 5. Give this movie a chance. If you've given up on the franchise, I totally get it because most of them are quite terrible, and I will be ranking them tomorrow or the next day. I'm really excited it's October. I know I didn't have any like spooky season intro or anything like that, but I have a lot of videos planned. If you're on my Patreon, you will see a list of basically everything I plan. And I know last video I literally made 1 month. I've been busy, basically fully adjusted to being here in Toronto, but it's been great, and it's good to see it in a really good theater that is not far away at all. But if you've seen Saw X, let me know what you think of it down below. Let me know where it lands in your ranking. Again, that video will be out very soon with a fun intro to it. But thank you all for watching. I will see you guys next time. Over and out.